Good morning. It's morning here in London. I should play a little branding. Let's see. Let's start with the branding we always start with. Where is it? Where is it? And because we're in London, because
ducks eat bread.
They do. They like it.
I never get to play. Never. I seldom play branding in the middle of anything, and I guess this isn't in the middle of anything. This is in the beginning of something. So welcome, Embody. And yes, it is almost 5 a.m. here in London. Still a little jet lagged, but it's not unusual for me to wake up at this hour of the day. I got a text from Rick looking for me on the the videos starting to come out of ARC already. I'm wearing a suit this year, so I've learned my lesson from last year, but there's a bunch of things to say. CBAX has been giving some nice reports. Let's see if I can get the camera angle a little bit better here. How much? Maybe a sock. So I can put a sock under this little stand and have the camera angle a little bit better. Peter Thiel. Well, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So I don't know how much I should talk about the everything coming up to this. That's right. Rick was Paul spotting on the ARC videos. Where should I begin? The trip so far has been great. The Galway event was great. The priest at the Romanian Orthodox Church recorded the part of the event with myself and Paul Kingsnorth. And when I attended the Orthodox liturgy on Sunday morning, he said, oh, you should definitely have that. I'll have Paul send it to you. So once things settle down a little bit, probably when I get to Cassidy and Ferdy's, I'll have time to download that. I can upload it to the channel, and all that kind of stuff. When you're on the road like this, getting good Wi-Fi is not an easy thing. I'm using the hotel Wi-Fi right now, which seems to be okay, but I would assume at this hour in the morning, there's not a lot of people using the Wi-Fi, so it works pretty well. CBAX has been, it's been wonderful that CBAX, is on this trip. At least he'll not be following me to the Netherlands or to Germany. So, but this part of the trip he's been documenting, which has been awesome. I've loved watching his videos. So, if you don't know Christian Baxter or YT or his channel, you should find it, and you can find you can find videos about ARC. And he got a little rant from me last night as I was a little frustrated with something. But let's talk about ARC. Get the sleepies out of my eyes. Let's talk about ARC 2025. Some of you might notice that I set up a little live blog, which I haven't been terribly live blogging, but I did make a little report from day one on that live blog. I'll get into that now. So, general things about ARC. I made a video last year called Jordan Peterson. I'll drop a link maybe in the comments. Jordan Peterson ARC Day 1, Jordan Peterson's ARC Day 1, the quest to renovate secondhand liberal lions. And everything I said in last year's video is pretty much the same for this year. All of the themes, I was riffing off of Eric Torenberg's group Narcissism Substack that I had read last year. I'll put that in the live stream as well. And I'll put them in the show notes after we're done live streaming. In a lot of ways, this is an attempt to revive classical liberalism. And let me say a few things, because what I'm about to say is going to sound very critical, and I have critiques and criticisms, but I feel very much on the same page as the leadership here of ARC in terms of what I want to see happen in the culture in the country. So in a lot of ways, they are my people, which sort of makes the critiques and criticisms that I'll have all the more poignant, especially for me, because I have to take them into myself. So that Torenberg place talked about lions and foxes. And I've thought a lot about this dynamic over the last couple of years. So, and I talked about this actually at the Paul King's North event too, and this is following along a lot of the things that I've been doing on the channel for a while. So when you think about state churches and nation states, the relationship between church and state, I think, and it's been a lot of the post-liberals that have highlighted this, the relationship between church and state is deeply connected. Politics is always religion is always, politics is now. Religion is dollars, politics is cents. So in order for not just, we hear this always from the founding fathers, that the United States required a religiously devout, or at least a religiously formed populace for democracy to work. And I think that's correct. But it isn't just Christian formation and the way that it works in the world. It's also a degree of harmony between the religion that produces a civilization and how well that civilization will function politically. Because obviously, if there is the tension between the religious substrata, which is always, and the political edifice, which is now an attempt to implement the religious vision of the ideal and the good, all of those things that are embedded in religious assumptions need to be pursued by political means. Now, this is again why I've long had this critique of the left's coining of the attempt to um, alienate and marginalize dread Christian nationalism, because what is a lie about that move is that in almost every way, those who are screaming Christian nationalists are themselves pursuing their own religious vision of the good in society. And the beginning of the Trump administration has been a classic example of that, because in many ways, the state is their God, and they have had political hegemony, and a chaos monster has come into the White House and has been thrashing around, destroying things. Now, as I said early on, it is not that the American people don't love their country or their government. They might have critiques and criticisms about their country and their government, but their government does a great deal of things that they love, such as Social Security and Medicare. These social safety nets in Europe and the United States did not arise out of nothing. In many ways, they inherited the religious vision of Christianity in terms of well-being and stability, and all of the vision that comes out of the monastery and of Christianity and of its struggle all the way back to the early days of the Roman Empire. And the poor should be cared for by the government. The United States should be Christ-like in terms of its foreign policy, even though that's mostly kayfabe. Even though Donald Trump and J.D. Vance like to say America should come first now, that's much more a shift in rhetoric than a shift in policy. America has long expressed its self-interest in its foreign and domestic policy, because what the politicians do is to satisfy the people, and the formation of the people is their religious formation in terms of the ideals and what they consider to be good and right to do. So when we see what's happening in the Trump-Vance administration, what we're seeing is the outworking of the evolution of a combination of the true religion beneath the scenes and how that's working. At some point, I don't know, maybe I'll have Cassidy, because I'm gonna have a little bit of time in the Netherlands besides just the dinners and the meetings. Maybe I'll have some back and forth to unpack, or maybe I should just bring Marcus on and maybe just do a live stream or do a collective from some of the groups of people. So we had a really nice group of people, Estuary people in Ireland. And now for the second time that I've done Estuary in Ireland, I've heard not just from like the hardcore people who traveled to Galway to do this, but from the people of Ireland, just that we do the Estuary thing, and they're like, oh, we're not doing this at all in our culture. So in terms of talking about things and talking through things, and the speed of change in Ireland has been perhaps unprecedented, the speed of cultural change. I heard that from many people that I met at the Irish event. So the United States, the speed of change has not been as great, but it has been significantly great. And again, I point to the work of Aaron Wrenn. I think he's one of the best people to listen to on these topics, because I think Wrenn sees it most fairly and most clearly when he talks about Donald Trump being the first president of post-Christian America. Wrenn rightly notes that I was also talking to Rafe Kelly. Rafe is here again this time, and spending a lot of time with Rafe. And Rafe's not only in touch with sort of the physical aspect of things, but Rafe is also thinking all the times about politics and religion and how this fits together, as Rafe continues to sort of lean into Christianity and try to figure out how Christianity can be integrated into his life and integrated into his own evolution of political thought. So, okay, ARC in general. Let's talk about the good. Now, or let's talk about some changes. This year, one of the big changes is they have 4,000 people here instead of 1,500 people here. It requires a change of venue. So we're in the Excel Center. It's a massive facility, and it's sized appropriately for this event, maybe even more appropriately than the last venue was sized for their event. But the last venue was nicer in terms of, as Rafe Kelly, I'll probably do a post-ARC conversation with Rafe Kelly after we get back and the dust settles and we have time to really absorb things. Rafe Kelly noted to me a number of times that, the aesthetics were better in the last meeting. The degree to which they could pursue conviviality was better at the last meeting. Right now, you have to go through this long mall in the Excel Center to get into the space. And once you get through security and the coat check and all of that stuff, you go downstairs and there's a big, massive meeting room. And a lot of the room, if not most of the room, is taken up by vendors who have their areas there where they are pursuing whatever it is. And again, most of these vendors, Unheard has a booth. Here, Justin Brierley has a booth. I have to look for him tomorrow. But this is like shooting fish in a barrel for Justin Brierley. I was shocked last time when Justin Brierley was not at ARC. I'm already hoarse because all I do all day is talk. So that's going to be a struggle. But that big, massive room where you have sort of everyone, the media channels and those kinds of things is loud. And, if you're my age, I don't wear hearing aids or anything. My hearing is fine, appropriate to my age, but everybody just starts to talk louder so you can talk over the din. And Rafe Kelly notes, check out the lighting in these rooms. It's what you're dealing with is a big convention center. And so it's not different from, let's say, this Holiday Inn Express hotel room that I'm in, where it's very generic. It's not convivial. They do have some chairs around, and so I have a meeting area, which is lovely, right near my English friends, John Lumgar. You can look at and his brother. So it's great to get in touch with them again. And I've got a meeting space there where I've sort of, to the best that I could, telegraphed. It's not Power Crystals, jerky, or timeshares, and it's not what's that thing that Rogan would always sell? No, it's Unheard, and it's the kinds of media like GB TV in Great Britain again has a big booth again. So, but it's the money changers in the temple. And again, the money changers had a really important function. They were in the temple, which makes the Jesus overturning the tables a super complex thing that, again, pastors can continue to chew on. The conversation about Jesus in Galway was outstanding. And again, hopefully I'll get that recording. But the room is loud. And they're using a corner of that room with big speakers sort of as overflow for what's going on in the main plenary session presentation room, which is you've got some tables in front like they did last time, and then massive chairs. But the percentage of people that can sit at tables and the percentage of people that can sit in the stands, sort of theater seating, is very different. And again, that's a function of going from 1,500 to 4,000. And it just intensifies the presentational priority of the conference, which again continues to be my big critique from last time. And then they send out the angels wearing their white ARC. They're wearing their white ARC jackets into the conference area to rouse the people and get them into the big things so our planned programming can commence. And again, I'm not really critiquing. I only did 2 of the plenary sessions because I've learned from last time, if you sit in that room and it's just like, it's a little much. And we'll talk a little bit about, again, some of what's going on in terms of the presentation, at least the ones that I have seen. And many of you can watch the presentations because they are professionally recorded and professionally sound. And so you can see the presentations that they give. The huge reason to come to this conference are the people. Like I said, for Justin Brierley, this is shooting fish in the barrel. Got to hang out a little bit with Glenn Scrivener yesterday. He's here. Seabax, of course, is here. Rafe Kelly is here. Benjamin Boyce is here this time. Politically, they've probably shifted more to the right, and I think that's allowed by the vibe change. And I wonder if, like, Peter Boghossian isn't here, which surprised me. So there's a bunch of, oh, I got to sneeze. Maybe I'll play some branding while I sneeze. Hang on, I won't play the whole branding, but I do got to sneeze. And that worked out well. That way you don't have to see me sneeze on the computer. I didn't bring any allergy medication because I thought, why? Central Valley's allergy central, but you know, a little bit of allergy going on here. So the huge value, and again, I want my critiques to be heard in the light of there's no other thing you can go to if you're into the corner and into sort of this internet space than this conference. There's nothing else like it. I suppose there are conservative conferences in America that politically would hit some of it, but in terms of Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot, Rafe Kelly, myself, this is central. Bethel McGrew is here this year. James Orr, if you're a fan of the Jordan Peterson Gospel Seminar, Oz Guinness is here. So there is nothing like this. And if you're really deep into wanting to get involved in this thing, this is ground central. You can have the conversations that are tough to have anywhere else, at least en masse and in scale like this. That being said, I think perhaps the percentage of people from let's say, it's a look at Jordan Peterson's channel. Those who watch all the political stuff and the culture war stuff versus those who watch the religious stuff. I'd say those who watch the religious stuff has sort of shrunk compared to the political, at least represented here. And Rafe Kelly said something super interesting to me. He said, you know, when you look at least in terms of our interest, you know, obviously Jonathan Peugeot is member of the advisory board, and Jonathan has done a great job in getting his people here, of which I include myself. The Dirt Poor Robins are playing music here. So Peugeot has a significant footprint here. But yet, let's say the Vervaeke corner of the Peterson sphere isn't terribly represented. And Rafe said to me, and I think Rafe was dead on right, there probably isn't a critique partner, and at least in Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson's definition, Genesis 1 help me, than John Vervaeke. And I think John Vervaeke's addition to the gospel seminar is, in my opinion, one of the best upgrades from the Exodus seminar to the gospel seminar. Because John Vervaeke has a way, he and Jordan know each other, they trust each other, they respect each other, but yet there's enough critique that came out in the AI interview panel, the AI section of yesterday's plenary sessions, which I did attend. And I'll have to talk about that. It's a good thing I got up early because I can spend 2-3 hours talking about this today. And I don't have 2-3 hours because I'm an up early and get a big breakfast guy. And I usually don't eat throughout the rest of the day with something like this because I'm there to talk to people. I'm not there to eat. I'm not there to listen. Jordan Hall is my hero. Jordan Hall, I talked to him. He said, I'm going to 0 of the plenary sessions. And I talked to another mutual friend of ours who was at the Symbolic World Summit. And he said, yeah, Jordan didn't go to any of the plenary sessions at the Symbolic World Seminar either. Jordan Hall is laser focused on what this space has to offer, which are the people that are here. And so again, there is no other place you can go like this here for this. It is hugely important for this movement and the corner. But they make it really hard to prioritize that value here. And if anything, it's harder and worse this year than last year. Why? Because I think what they want to do is make this influential and successful. And one of the ways that you do that is numerical growth. And so last year was 1,500. This year is 4,000. Next time, which is already announced, June of 2026, here in London, I would imagine they want to go to 8 or 10,000. But size changes things. It always does. And when you go up in size, you have to prioritize certain things. So during the day, you have all these plenary sessions, and then you have substantially large coffee breaks, which you have to have if you're going to move that many people. And those are good. And again, they have good hors d'oeuvres, but the space isn't convivial for this kind of thing. And then in the evening, they have a reception. And even before the reception, they announced, well, this is because what's so important here is for all of you to network and do all of this. And then you go into the reception, and what do? They try to talk at you again. I was furious. I said, this is why I don't drink. I would throw my glass. You need that. It would be an American. Roadhouse where they'd need to have, like the wire around the stage because everybody's throwing their beer bottles. It's like, finally, this is the space that you're supposed to give people to get together, and you're talking, and then everybody's like, shh, shh, shh. And it's like, no. And you get into a room, and it's just a room covered by curtains, and there's no place to sit, and it's flat on the floor, and there's nothing to absorb the sound. And it's like, goodness gracious. It's a performative assertion that you have drawn some of the, at least for your corner of interest, some of the most capable, most experienced, wisest people for the movement you wish to facilitate with this event. And there's no other event like it. And what, in my opinion, is the main opportunity of this event, by how you host this, you make it nearly impossible to fulfill. So that's why I'll put a link below of a little live blog that I'm doing where my goal is to host estuary conversations. Because, okay, so what networking looks like at a conference like this is standing around in a huddle of 2 or 3, talking to people. But because human beings are very status conscious, and this conference in some ways really elevates the status dynamic, because what happens, and I've been to political things because I live in a political town, and many of my people work in a very political space. What tends to happen is you're sitting there talking to someone, but you're always scanning. You're looking for a bigger name. You're looking for a celebrity. Because if you come to this conference and you're a low status person, because of course, there's sort of the gold room where the presenters are, and they're not being herded into the plenary sessions. They don't watch the plenary sessions. I know what it's like to be on the other side of the stage. You're there to give the show, but you're in the green room relaxing, and you're chatting with all the higher status people, and there's not all noise back there, I bet. In other words, for the elites of a conference like this, they get to do what all of us in the lower status area really need to do. And it's set up for them that way, but it's not set up for us that way. So, where was I going with this? So yeah, what happens, the dynamics of something like this is you're talking to something, but this is so hard to do, so hard to stop from doing. Your eyes are always seeing way more than consciously you're looking at. And if a high status person walks out there, bang, attention goes to the high status person. And so, in the words of a friend of mine who works in California politics, like if I don't take his call, he's always like, you had a bigger name, right? Because that is environment. And so what that means is that even the conversations that you're having out there in the hall, that is not facilitating conversation. You're just scanning for a bigger name. And so then when Eric Weinstein, who to his credit is often out there among the people, that is one thing I really appreciate Eric Weinstein for. He doesn't hide in the green room. Eric gets out there and he mixes it up and he talks to normies and he's very accessible. But, Eric Weinstein walks by and all eyes go to him. Oh, because this is a very natural dynamic. People have watched Eric Weinstein. He's on a big channel. He's on TV stations. And so you come to an event like this out of the hope of maybe having some meaningful contact with the gods of this arena. And that, again, means that even the networking that you can do at a conference like this is inhibited, not just by the din of the noise, not just by the fact that they are piping in the noise from the plenary sessions, even when you've decided to skip them. Not just that, the main portion of the hall is filled with the money changers of the temple, but because just naturally everyone's scanning for a status upgrade. And it's really hard to resist. So even the conversations that you're having, which are good, are not being facilitated. So this morning at 11:30 and at 1:30, I'm going to be organizing people into estuary pods. And I don't have a good space to do it. And I'm furious about it because how much would it take? How freaking much would it take? And if we had a space that was quiet and isolated, a breakout room where 6 to 10 people of these extraordinary people that are here, I meet the most extraordinary people here. That is why you come to this event. And they are brimming with experience and ideas, and there's a degree of an alignment. Are there any beautiful women at the ARC conference? Yes, there are. Partly because this is a political thing, and whereas it's the old dogs that get on TV from politics, it's the old men. Politics is staffed by up-and-coming, often beautiful young men and women. So yeah, there are many beautiful women here. So, and the reality between old men politicians and young, attractive women who are starting to climb the scale, that's a big deal. Just ask Andrew Cuomo about how that works. Anyway. So the message I would have given to them, and the message I did give in terms of feedback to last year's ARC conference, completely ignored. Breakout rooms that are convivial, that are gezellig, for those of you who know the Dutch, that 6 to 10 people can come, and then you say you're setting up little green rooms. In a way, yeah, but just ask the people to cycle through. And see, Estuary does this. And The people themselves who are in those rooms don't know what they have to offer the other people. I explained to, so Andy Wilkins was on the channel last year. He was here. He tries to make healthcare more humane. And I did a video where I compared him and Jordan Hall. And I had Andy Wilkins, and Jordan Hall was right over there and was like, oh, you two need to talk. And so I took them and I brought them together. And they had a wonderful conversation. I get emails from corporations that want me to pause, and here I'm going to talk about such and such a corporation or Action Water Sports. I hope I never have to do that. So today, 2 Estuary sessions, one at 11:30 and one at 1:30, and I put them around the plenary sessions that I myself want to go to, because I think it is important for me to get into the plenary sessions, because they are important too. And I'll talk about the plenary sessions in a minute. But please, 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 as I was talking to Andy Wilkins, you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the goal of ARC? What do you want to accomplish? I think what they want to do is support and resource leadership development in the broader culture towards the ends which they identify. But nothing that they are doing here besides the basic networking, which is the main reason to be here, and it's substantial, and there's nothing else like it. That is the truly great accomplishment that they have pulled up with ARC. They are not trying to facilitate it at all. Or no, I think they are trying to facilitate it, but they're doing so many things against what they want to do. And remember that comment on the Jordan Peterson, Spencer Clavin video on the Daily Wire that Bethel McGrew sent to me, and I've talked about it a few times, where this guy is like watching this rich conversation between Jordan and Spencer Clavin, and the only access he has to that world is leaving a comment, and he says, I feel like I'm sitting outside a lavish restaurant, I'll embellish it a little bit, in the developing world, and I'm the poor kid with his nose against the glass. In some ways, ARC is like that, because I look around, and fortunately now, because of the channel, because I have a network of people now, because we have developed this little corner of the internet, which is not just presentational, but is participatory, people will come to me and say, you need to talk to this person. And so John Lumgar connected me with Daniel Strange, who teaches at the seminary that Glenn Scrivener went to, and John Lumgar, who knows a lot of people, connected me with Daniel Strange, and we started talking for a minute. It takes a few minutes to sort of find each other, and then it was, what he is doing academically fits so well with both my Dutch Calvinism and what we're doing in the corner, that I'm going to have him on the channel. And the more we connected, the more excited both of us got, because it was the whole business of finding each other. Yes, my sister. How come I'm not sleeping? It's called jet lag, and it's not uncommon that I wake up at this time in the morning. I'm in bed with my wife, so I just stay quiet. I might listen to a podcast. I might pray. I might think about a sermon. I do all those things usually, but here it's like, I'm not going to get any time of day to talk about this. I didn't have time last night or energy to make a video, so I'm freshest here. That's right. I get up early, eat a big breakfast. Yes, exactly. Now, John Paul, I know who you are. You asked the question during the legendary Genesis series. You had one of the key questions during that whole series. I know who you are. And that's, again, the benefit of the corner. Yes, my sister loves me. And That's right. That's exactly right, Yosef. And so I am, in fact, running Estuary side stream at ARC. That is what I am doing. And yesterday I was unsure because, this is how I got into YouTube. I stick my big nose into their business and Jordan Peterson. And last year at ARC, it was funny because both for Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein, I was sort of in this one smaller gathering and they saw me. At first they looked as if, oh, it's a familiar face. This was just biologically you look and it's like, but then they realized, oh, this is that really annoying guy who does commentary and critique on our videos and isn't always positive. And they were very gracious about it. They're lovely people. But it's, as I was saying to John Hares, I said, it's like the kid who, and he said, yeah, I exactly have this. The kid who grabs your leg thinking that you're their mom or their dad and then looks up to realize you're not. That was the experience with Brett and Heather and Eric. And Eric had things to say. But again, what I love about Eric practices what he preaches with respect to this stuff. Eric is down there at the floor, meeting the normies, having the conversation. And Jordan would be too. Jordan is astoundingly good at that. You can see that at his events. But of course, Jordan, hierarchy's bind and blind, and he's gotten to a position where he's considerably less free with this stuff. But so we sit outside with our nose pressed against the glass at the smorgasbord of networking. And it's like, you're doing everything possible to not allow us to do the one thing that this could uniquely do better than anything else. Please stop. Turn off the noise. Give us a quiet space. Give us chairs to sit in. Have at least some degree of facilitation. And none of it would be perfect, which is why, as I said to Andy Wilkins, who works in healthcare, which I said, why? Doctors don't heal the body. They create the arena whereby the body can heal. ARC needs to have big speeches, but they need to do better at that. ARC needs to have big speeches and a big platform and to bring in the lights, the stars, to attract the people. My conversation with Malcolm Collins. So I'm standing there, me and Rafe Kelly have left the din of the supposed reception where we're networking. Rafe Kelly was also furious, and he was furious. He's like, look at this environment, look at the lighting. This is totally unhuman. So me and Rafe Kelly were just, we're ramping up with respect to this, and CBAX is right there. So we move out of there into a quieter, also less humane environment to do our mutual complaining. And Malcolm comes out of the room. And of course, you can't miss Malcolm, the glasses. And we saw each other and come on over here. Malcolm's critique was, Rafe has his critique, and then Rafe and Malcolm weren't exactly on the same page with respect to their critique. And I didn't have to say anything about it because I am not a political animal in the way that these guys are, because they know all the different tribes and all of that stuff. And Malcolm's critique was devastating. He said, you have the safer and often lesser lights on stage. And this is, and actually Malcolm disagreed with Rafe, but I think Rafe's critique was actually true, because Rafe said, this is covering up the fissures in this new right-wing consensus that toppled the cathedral. And Malcolm basically pointed out that you've got some serious lights in this room with respect to that counterculture movement who are not on stage, and they're not on stage because they're politically difficult. And of course, Malcolm is Malcolm. Then Malcolm and I proceeded with Neil from Dortport Robbins to have very interesting conversations about. Malcolm says that my channel and his channel have about the most overlap that he and Simone have with their channel. But what none of the Orthodox watch his channel. The commonality between my channel and Malcolm's channel are Mormons and Catholics. which is really interesting. But the ortho bros don't. Neil had never seen Malcolm, didn't know who Malcolm was. Fascinating. And again, these kinds of interactions, you can do them no place but here. And what I'm afraid of is that I think ARC came out of the gate October of 2023, gathered the people that they needed. They want to expand it to 4,000. That's helpful because it adds more room for Marcus, for more Christ, and Seabax, and Andy Wilkins, and a whole bunch of people that are here but weren't at the last one. So in that sense, the networking is richer because it's larger. But some of the dissident lights, well, that's not true. The group has shifted. It's been able to sort of shift to the right because it can, partly because of the Trump election. So it's fascinating. Plenary sessions. So I don't know, I might get caught by this rave again, but I went to two. I went to the opening one because opening words are important. I thought the speech given by, it's just my bias of the aspect of this I'm most interested in because I am a minority here. The most interesting part of this movement is the religious movement for me, not the political. I thought the speech given by the Secretary of the House, it's a good speech. It's a really good speech. I'm going to have something to say about a couple other speeches at some point, but I want to do that when I can play a bit of the speech and talk about it. I didn't know the new head of the Conservative Party in the UK. She gave quite a speech. She is a woman of African descent who, may very well be the Prime Minister of England at some point. She gave quite a speech. And I thought what she really nailed, it was really a very good speech. I mean, this is why it's kind of good to do this after a day. Because I thought she really nailed, she said, this is not so much a crisis of values, because there is a large degree of consensus between left and right in the West. This is a crisis of confidence. And that gets back to last year's video about lions versus foxes. And so again, this conference is all about the return of the lion, or they want to be the return of the lion, but they're sort of a bobcat size thing. And now bobcats are bigger than foxes, or maybe they're coyote. They're not really quite wolf size, but again, wolf is sort of the wrong symbolic resonance. So everything I said in last year's critique still holds with this critique. The best session, the best section of the morning was a panel discussion. The Archbishop of the Coptic Church in England. Oh. Again, the value of something like this is you can introduce someone to the world who should be introduced. And so the conservative member of MP, conservative MP for the head of the Conservative Party here, I'm glad to have heard her. The Archbishop, the Coptic Archbishop in London, really good. Another woman, that whole panel I loved. But as Rafe Kelly said to me, he said, there's no time in those panel discussions to actually really get, all you get is sound bites. So, and this is for most of us in this room who are conditioned now to 2, 3, 4 hour podcasts and YouTube. And you have these tiny little panel discussions. So they're like hors d'oeuvres. When you come to something like this, you really want a meal. In the other session, so they had Peter Thiel in virtually, and it was kind of like we got going here. But this is a early morning hotel room live stream. Peter Thiel is one of the more important voices of this generation, whatever you think of his politics. And is AI, I mean, if you're going to really try to get into the AI questions, is Peter Thiel the person? Now, he started out with his strength because he talked about all of the kinds of topics that he's really good on. He talked about decadence and talked about stagnation. And so that is connected to AI. The better section of that was Mary Harrington and Jonathan Peugeot, who I thought both did very, very well. And Mary Harrington, I love both Mary Harrington and Jonathan Peugeot, so I thought they did very, very well. The topic of AI is a huge and hugely important topic. One that it's sort of like trying to have a conversation at the beginning of the 20th century about the automobile. The beginning of the 20th century, they had no idea of how the automobile would change the world. At this point, we have no idea how AI is going to change the world. I think we're probably, I don't know how frightened people were of the automobile. I'm sure there are plenty of detractors at the beginning of the 20th century with respect to the automobile. And I'm sure many of their fears were realized. But there were all sorts of consequences, positive and negative, that none of them could imagine. And that's where we are with respect to AI. Hugely important topic. And of course, I think Mary and Jonathan Peugeot are two of the better voices. But as one of the real interesting moments of this political sea change that we are living through, and Rafe Kelly articulated this very, very well to someone who kind of dismissed him. What does it say that your coalition is made up of transhumanists and ancient religious people? And so that's why you've got Jonathan Peugeot and Mary Harrington, who are on stage saying, this transhumanism thing, you better be super careful with that. It is in many ways the logical extension of the wokeism around which this political movement has found their common ground in order to resist it. But transhumanism is a further development of wokeism. It is not the alternative to wokeism. And it has everything to do with identity. And so, they had the topic right. But Peter Thiel not being in the room, it's devastating. That session ended with a really lovely presentation, a sermon, a moralistic sermon from a British woman against the developments of big tech and education. Now, there's something. Look at Apple, look at Microsoft, look at Google. Go into any school in North America, and you can see how Apple, Microsoft, and Google are selling Chromebooks and selling MacBooks and selling Surfaces and selling services. And they are really addressing the massive amounts of money that are in public education in the United States. And for the most part, it's devastating in terms of what this is doing to education. And so this woman's sermon, and it was a sermon, was right on target. I wish she had said something about homeschool. I was sitting next to Bethel McGrew for that particular session. And so Bethel was giving me a live commentary about what she thought of everything that was going through in real time. Not a word about homeschooling, which again is sort of like And Bethel says, well, I don't think homeschooling is big in the UK. And I think that's true. But in terms of your audience, classical homeschooling, they have a booth in the vendor section. Big miss in terms of that's a huge number of people, at least from the United States, that are into classical homeschooling education. And there's a tension between the transhumanists and the big tech trying to colonize education and say, we can educate by getting screens in front of people. And she was right. She said, get those screens away from the kids. 1 to 2 hours max for, let's say, a upper elementary kid, and no screens before the age of 12 or 13. So it was a great sermon, but then it forces me again to my major critique of, my critique of Protestant churches too. Critique of myself. I'm a Protestant preacher. So you're using your time to preach to the choir, are you? You have this event every year and a half. It's a tremendously costly event. The success of this movement will depend on attracting the kinds of very competent, well-experienced people that you are drawing to this thing and having them leave here and say, wow, this was exactly what I needed. That's how you grow a movement. Satisfy the people you're looking to develop, because these people are thoroughbreds and they are hungering for more. You know, it's like Neo in the Matrix when they plug him in and they're like, how's he going to take this? It's like, vroom, give me more. That's what the people who come to ARC are like. Give me more. And if you treat them like they don't have a voice, like the most, they will, like I tell people with homeschooling, say, you don't need the best curriculum. You don't need to be a super teacher yourself to homeschool. What you need to do is to create a resource-rich environment. Get rid of the poisons, the toxins in the environment, and the little animalitos in the estuary and in the tidal pools do their thing. And that's what this conference needs to do. It needs to get out of the way of the main thing that can happen here to make this a truly unique opportunity. And they are squandering it. And every year they don't learn this opportunity to feed this movement will diminish. You're not feeding this movement with 15-minute talks from people that can be found presenting their ideas better through publishing or through YouTube. That is not the kind of resourcing that an in-person event needs to have, which is why in our product placement here's my advertisement, the Estuary events. Now the Midwestuary, it's going to be a lot of big stage, and there's a place for that. People are super excited to meet the people who are coming to the Midwestuary in August. But, you know, to the degree that we can with a group that size, we will have breakout and estuary sessions built into the conference. The Northwestuary Nate Hiles conference nailed it. I don't know that we will hit that again, but we're going to continue to try. And if I can get doing conferences at Living Stones regularly, the challenge is getting MIT. Yeah, that's what Chicago's about, trying to wed this. And what I want to do at Living Stones is because Living Stones is a small facility, smaller conferences between 60 and 100 people. But I'm going to try to get the people in there who will, like Eric Weinstein. Again, I don't know that Eric will ever see this, but Eric, to your credit, you are doing it right. And if I see you on the floor, I know we had our little very interesting moments last year, you and I, Eric. I am going to lead in with, I super appreciate the fact, and Jonathan too. Jonathan is out on the floor. And and others too. But in terms of Jonathan, I expect this from Jonathan because Jonathan's Jonathan. Jonathan Peugeot, incredible gift to the world. I just love Jonathan and the way Jonathan acts and what he does here. And you know, Jordan, I truly believe Jordan would love nothing better than to be out among the people, because if you've been with Jordan at places, he loves it. But you know, Jordan has bodyguards, and Jordan, you know, there's this little, as someone said, Jordan comes onto the floor, there's this little donut that follows around him, and hierarchy's binding blind. And so the way to counteract that is you have to anticipate these, and you have to structure for it. You have to structure for it. It will not just happen because of all of the other things. You have to structure for it. And they are doing everything in the wrong direction to impede it. And I'm the kid against the glass saying, oh, it could have been so great. So, and it's, well, what do I tell people? You know, if you see something done wrong, do it right. And so that's what we're striving for with our estuary conferences and our estuary retreats and the estuary movement. Estuary movement is about creating that tidal pool where the people can come together. And so yesterday by 4:00, I never mentioned his name, but what a really integral guy to this corner who likes to stay behind the scenes, says to me, Jordan Hall is looking for you. Jordan Hall came up to me and said, where's Paul Vanderklay? They wanted to do the estuary, though, during Peugeot and Mary Harrington's thing. And no, I was going to be in the plenary sessions for that. But I said, when I launched this morning, I didn't know if anybody would pick up on it or people would say, oh, that's, you know, why would I sit down and do an estuary thing right now? That's Paul Vanderklay's little weird shtick. But people by the end of today were hungering for it because they'd had enough of the little impromptu, got to keep my eye on the time, the little impromptu sidebars and, you know, always scanning for the better name. And they wanted to sit down with these amazing, valuable people in a quiet space and use the estuary protocol to say, what's on your mind? Pitch to the group. What's on your mind? What's on your mind? Oh, that idea, that's really good. That idea, that's really good. Let's bring them together and integrate and do the synthesis and come out of that estuary meeting, with the valuables that I came to this conference to bring home. The relationships, the book ideas, the networking. It's driving me crazy. So I gave Seabax just that. Seabax, it was just a sample of the rant. This is the real rant. So, as I said, last year's video is still there. And Malcolm Collins was picking up on it because this, and that's what sort of I'll critique my own tradition. That's what sort of Protestant sermons do, which is why I think estuaries are so important in churches. Because in this age of social media, people won't sit quietly in their chairs. Why? They've stopped coming to church. I think part of the reason that Orthodox liturgy is doing pretty well in this moment, it is more participatory. That is why high church liturgy is coming back in a way, because it's more participatory. And watchers of screens and Protestant homiletics are saying, I want to play, I want to join, I want to have a voice, I want to participate, I have something to contribute. Please, would someone listen? That's what this little corner of the internet is all about. That maybe not 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 people will listen to you, but 50 or 100 or 200 people will listen to you, and they'll listen to you seriously, and they'll connect with you, and they'll agree with you. And, you know, I was talking to one person, and I said, I don't know how many years the top quality people will live in this frustration. They might grow the number bigger, but some of the really amazing people that you don't know their name and I don't know their name because they're out there working in offices and organizations, and they've developed incredible wisdom and experience, and they have ideas, and they're in alignment with this movement. They're already in alignment with it. So the signal went out and they have gathered, and their noses are pressed up against the glass. But these are high value, high agency people. And I'll tell you, high agency people whose noses are pressed up against the glass, they will not tolerate this, because they will go back out into the world and they will continue to do what's satisfying and meaningful and continue to help the world. But ARC as a thing of value will not be valued. And you might say, "Oh, Vanderklay, you're just, selling your shtick, which is Estuary." And I'll say, yeah. And I don't have a problem that Estuary is small. I don't have a problem that our Estuary conferences don't have thousands of people. In fact, the value of the Estuary conferences will be that they're small. And that's why we need to keep multiplying them and try to contain the costs, so that this is how you develop the people with agency and wisdom that creates a cultural transformative movement, which is what we keep hearing from the people on stage. We want to transform the culture. Well, then you're doing it wrong. Now, I understand, and I'm a Protestant. I understand the position of the pulpit in the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th century to create a movement, but this is the 21st century. And if you're really going to create the movement, you have to create the farm teams and the young players. And the way to do that is not talking at them. The way to do that is the way you create any good leader. You give them responsibility. You give them something to do. You let them fail, but you're alongside, and then you help them do the thinking and the facilitation to develop. That's how you create leaders. You don't create them by talking at them. The educational and university systems are bankrupt because they're still way too Protestant. We just talk everyone to death. Here I'm on YouTube talking you to death. And I even dropped the link. Gosh. We start a little later. I want to go to breakfast early because in a hotel, the best breakfast is early. So I don't know if I'll have to, but I got to drop the link. I got to practice what I preach. So, I'm dropping the link. I probably don't have to pin it because I can't do it that long. So I certainly will, Rick. And again, I mean, the ARC people, I think probably via Jonathan's show, have been very good to me. Oh, Grim Grizz is real.
Morning, Paul. Morning,
Yeah,
Paul.
early morning for me, late night for you. Not late night.
I am setting up the stream to my stream. So, who's your favorite person you met so far?
New person?
Yeah.
Daniel Strange. Yeah, that's his name. He's a theologian. He and I, once we sort of found each other, it's like, boom. Oh, I need you on the channel.
Good.
Best,
I think you need your
reunion.
saving throws for today.
Oh, yes, please.
I mean, you're at ARC, right? And everybody else does. Survival, social, wisdom, or heart. Can you resist the new WEF? Out with the old WEF, in with the new WEF. Mind control. Survival, social, wisdom, or heart. Choose. Oh.
What?
Survivalists, not one.
Ooh.
Socialists, 19. Pride 19 for the socialists. Pairing it up with the survivalists. Wisdom lovers, not one.
Oh, I am colonizing. I am colonizing like a boss today.
Hard folks, you got a 5. All you need is a replay comment, and you'll make it. Indigo kids, you got this. Disciples.
There we go.
You. All right. Indigo kids. Oh, Bird. Disciples.
Oh, Burn, you got to turn off the other.
He did it.
Okay, good.
All right. No, Bird. Disciples. You got to stop it in YouTube. Is all.
You got to stop
It's
it in
still
YouTube
running
and
over
only
there.
listen in StreamYard. Go ahead, Chris.
This responsible citizens they're selling. What I need from them is a definition of a responsible citizen. Like, how involved in my city council is a responsible citizen? How does a responsible citizen hold their state legislatures accountable? That's I don't know what they're doing, but that's the product that I need for me to believe they know anything about responsible citizenship at this point.
Well, in all fairness, these are ministers of parliament. These are very accomplished people here.
Accomplished, but they're if they want to make us the plebes responsible citizens and competent members of democracies and such, we need explicit instructions like on how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. We're pretty dumb out here. Oh,
good point, Grizz.
there's
Good
my
point.
piece. It's good to see you.
Favorite
Sorry
new
to make it.
relationship from the trip so far? Martin Shaw. Oh, I had tons of time with Martin, and we're just having a great time. Love Martin.
He's allowed to believe I'm a mythological creature. It might turn into a story one day, and if it's going to turn into a story, I want him to be the one that tells it, right?
You better believe it. You bet. And anybody who's not yet discovered Jawbone, Martin Shaw's new YouTube channel, terrific. Bern, what say you? I met the Georgian delegation found me today, and they said, "Come to Georgia."
What Georgian delegation? Who are you talking about? People who
John
had been.
Hears, who of course is deep in the ortho community,
Mm-hmm.
got 4 Georgians to come to ARC.
Wow.
And he said, "I'm sending them to you, Paul, because they know who you are and they want you to come." So I said, "Do you know Bern Powers?" And they're like, "No." "Do you know Mark from Tbilisi?" They're like, "No." They're not corner people, but said, "You definitely have to come to ARC." So, or you have to come to Tbilisi. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hoping for, this is just an aside to all of this. I want to get back to this, but what I'm hoping for is, I turned 70 this year, and I'm having. It's in the middle of the summer in July, and I'm having a special do here, and I'm going to do a gathering in Georgia, as well as invite friends. Like they'll kind of overlap on my birthday, and it's great because there's like a music festival, traditional music festival that happens around that time, and plus go into the mountains. But what I was thinking is, if we could raise the money to get you here, would you consider coming?
This you're talking summer of 2026 or 2025?
No, this summer, third week in July or so.
Skeptical.
Okay, yeah, I'm not. Anyway, that's just an aside. So, no, my feeling about these is I see these names coming up and such, and I'm sitting there saying, they're getting all of this technique from corporate structures. And, it's like somebody's been to too many conferences and, Marriott's and stuff. And it's not, that doesn't connect. I would say they'd be much better, although I'm not a huge fan of like geek conventions. They'd be much better to look at how the panels are run on those things. And, there's a sense of, I'm watching people like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and a whole bunch of other people who are, kind of adjacent to us somewhere out there. But you see them up there, and they have effectively colonized the space. They've gone from being YouTubers to being the people everyone wants to see there.
Yep.
And what I find interesting about that is there is a sense within that structure of mobility. Of there are people I've seen on the periphery a year ago weren't part of the scene, came in with a YouTube channel because they're so focused on certain issues related to film and video games and these kind of things. Now they're panelists. You don't get that feeling at all from what's going on with ARC. That is to say, it feels like, who are the most celebrated people who we could get to provide, status for our event. And it just feels like, no. It's just like, no. Which is why I do little things like, I did one gathering in Georgia, but I also do little things here where I get together with people and have discussions and such like that. But I think it's all the little things that in the end change the culture. It's not the big top-down stuff.
It's all the stuff below. Shane, or no, Brian, you were next. What say you, Brian?
Oh, what Bern said about the conventions reminded me of the ABA has a conference, and I go there, and I never buy the American Bar Association. They have an antitrust conference over in Washington, and I never buy a ticket, and they have receptions afterwards that all the attorneys and consultants, they all do. And so we just go to those and we chat to each other and all that kind of stuff. They should have receptions, although I guess they're all fancy exclusive parties down there, so you can't have people crashing those.
Yeah. No, and that's, I don't know. It's deeply frustrated, as you could hear from the rant. Shane, what say you?
Just how much I appreciate your way of thinking. I wish that there was something more like Estuary in the experience that I have with church, because the bones, the meat of church happens in those in between spaces where it's not the presentation, it's not the whatever it is. I mean, I certainly enjoy and appreciate and benefit from the liturgy, but the sustaining partnership in life comes in those little bits of conversation and interaction that happen in the in-between spaces, and that has to be deliberate. If it's not deliberate, then in a certain sense, you're almost fighting against the purpose of it. It may come to me, the circumstance that fits this metaphorically, that I was interacting with recently, but where, like you said, the I don't know what you call it, like the mission statement of the thing itself is the thing that you're most inhibiting. Like, come on, people. Are we a family or not? Are we trying to get to know each other or not? Is this a movement of the people or not? And whatever that is, the ground up thing.
This, the people have, because of the Trump election. Well, the people have spoken. It's like,
hello.
We're trying.
I have to be humble and say I'm guilty, even in conversation, of being uncomfortable with silence and things like that. Like where I feel like I am in a certain way being asked to perform. And so I wanna be as charitable as I can be. Like if I was given the responsibility for putting on one of these things, I would probably do all the same stupid stuff.
Yeah, because like Bern said, I mean, it's corporate and political, and what they've just done is they are practicing what they've always been enculturated to practice. And you're exactly right, Bern. I mean, there's a lot that has gone on in religious and cultural spaces to create other kinds of events that pursue the outcomes. But it's like, who's ever in charge of this thing, it's just the political and corporate stuff. So
yeah. Well, Os Guinness in a lecture once said something interesting, and curiously enough, I've had the same issue with him That is to say, he's got a certain amount of status, has had it since the late 70s. And but he made an interesting point, which I think is relevant to here. He said there was a man talking to someone at Yale, and someone was saying, well, this was actually like a news or some. I don't remember the exact context, but anyway, he says, so do you pay attention to? The man was a Christian. He says, do you pay attention to what is said at the Yale Divinity School? And he goes, oh, no. They're completely liberal. I don't do anything with them. And then he said, so, but evidently you pay attention to what they say in their business school. And he goes, oh, absolutely. And he didn't get the fact that those two were exactly the same thing, the same philosophy. And that's what a lot of these people today who are, trying to do what they're doing, they make that mistake. They think that, okay, we're not going to say the same ideas as the other people. And then they use the same format, not realizing, as Marshall McLuhan once said, the medium is the message. So if you put something on television, you either obey the rules of television or not. YouTube, what's happening now is I find there's so many people. I look at these, I've got this shrimpy little channel, and I look at how people say you should grow, and they say you should follow the algorithms. Yes, follow the algorithms. And some of them say it doesn't matter what you do. If you want to monetize, follow the algorithms. And I'm sitting there going, if I did that, I would just lose my soul.
I told Martin Shaw, Martin, somebody else is like doing the YouTube thing for Martin. I said, Martin, you're hitting it out of the park. You're doing exactly right. And I said, pay no attention to the algorithm, Martin. Just keep making what you're making. And the bad news is it's not going to grow real huge, because you said, well, what does feed the algorithm? I said, have you heard of Mr. Bean? And Martin Shaw said no. Or Mr. Beast. Martin Shaw said no. I said, keep it that way, Martin. So
he should have heard of Mr. Bean. Hey, Paul, I'm going to do my part to make sure you have a good breakfast.
All right.
Remind you that if you run into Harris, take good care of him. And if you run into Neil,
ran into him the first day.
Good. And if you run into that Neil the Great,
I haven't spent enough time with him, but he's here and he's representing, and God bless Ups. I
hope he was wearing a Denny hat. If you run into that Neil the Great fella, tell him I need about 50 more of these decks so I can hawk them. And the Jux deck card of the show is the Jack of Spades.
I will tell Neil. All
right. You have a great time and a great breakfast, sir.
Thank you. Any last words? Other last words, people? Because I got to go get my breakfast.
Enjoy.
I am. And that's, I feel bad with a video like this because.
Oh, I know.
There's no place else you can do this. And so it's like, what are you doing? You have it all here. Thrive,
It's almost like they're asking to have an alternative version of it set up in the same place at the same time.
That, in fact, may come. And this year, so my little Estuary side stream, it's kind of what I'm doing. There is, but if this continues, that is exactly what will happen. And what you said, Brian, that is exactly what will happen, because people will find a way.
And something that Shane said with talking in church, I find that like when I'm in choir or something and creating something, I talk with the other people. And at Northwest Estuary, when we were doing the Estuary sessions, we were creating a part of the thing. And maybe that's what they need here, is like the people need to be a part of the creation. And it feels like instead they're just watching the thing, but they need to help create. And then that can spin back home, and they can bring the ARC, become responsible citizens in their cities. And that would make us but in order to do that, you got to get those participants participating, not just because you don't want them to sit down and watch when they go back home.
No, you don't. I mean, this is the the point of this whole thing. And Grizz nailed it. Alliance of Responsible Citizens. It's like, we're programming responsible citizens. Be still and receive the regularly scheduled program. I mean, it's the 1984 Apple commercial all over again.
I don't know if the media is the right metaphor for this, but the contradiction of whatever that is, the trust, the confidence that you have that I don't have to do anything. You're here. You're competent. Do your thing. I homeschool my kids, and so I'm gonna just pitch right here, Paul. Please, sometime have somebody who's a homeschooler at a level that you respect. Just interview them on your channel, and please, because I know how hard it is to get started. There's so much anxiety to overcome because it's so anti
Oh yeah.
conventional. Like, you're really bucking the system when you decide you're going to do that. And yet, boy, and the thing that I'm able to do with my kids is tell them, hey, all of this, everything is so that you have agency. And every time you show me that you can handle more, I'm going to give it to you. At some point, I'm going to throw you the car keys. I'm going to say, you can do this. And they're not even going to believe they can, but I'm going to know they can. And they're going to feel so encouraged and so empowered. And I'm going to feel like a little scared, but also really proud because I know they can. And I mean, how silly to relate that to this ARC thing, because
no, it's totally relatable.
Well, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the people who are there are as capable and trustworthy of engaging in conversation. It's not like you're throwing them the keys to the Senate. Like,
mind, in most European countries, homeschooling is illegal.
Yeah, that's God. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I can't even believe they're arresting people for sharing memes. Like, is this real?
Yeah. No, it's part of the reason I make these trips is, we have it in the US. We have it so good. To get the estuary movement off the ground in the US and Canada goes well. Here in Europe, it's hard. And so, you got to support Cassidy, got to support Tayo, got to support Matthias, got to support our estuary leaders in Europe, because it's so much harder in Europe, so much harder. In America, we have the culture. When I go to Ireland and I do an estuary meeting, regular Irish people are like, they're like starving people who have been given a piece of bread, because religiously it's just chaos right now. And they're like, we have to talk about this. So yeah, pray for the Irish, the Scotch Irish estuary that mostly meets online. And, I know that a lot of people, Marcus got a lot of response from his conference about interest in estuary, but in Europe, it's so much harder to get going. In America, we are way more used to this new culture that is emerging, like homeschooling. So, all right, last words, Bern, and then I got to eat breakfast.
Thanks. I'll keep watching your reports. Keep feeding us what's going on.
All right, and make sure you go to Christian Baxter's channel, because he's doing a lot more than me.
Yeah, I am. And actually, what I'm going to do is I think I'll get him on my channel. He's always interviewing people, and he's trying to get something going. But I want to interview him because he's talked to so many people. That gives him a good view of a larger, scene.
Yeah.
And but I'm going to think about the gathering in Georgia, not for this year. I will do that. We'll try to do that this year, but maybe in a year or so. And I got to get you here. You're needed. Not for, well, we'll just see. We'll play.
All right. Very good. Take care. Good night, everyone. We got to play a little branding. Let's see. What shall we pray? Pray, please.
Where are you here?
Oh, there I am. Hey.
Where are you? There.
Got me?
Oh boy. Yeah. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Come on, Dad.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Yeah.
Walk with my mama.
Yeah, walk with my mama.
Walk with me.
Walk with me too.
You walk with my mama.
Yeah.
Walk with me.
And walk with me too.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
I want Jesus.
Want Jesus.
Walk with me.
Walk with me. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. All along this Jesus journey. Hold my hand, Lord. And hold my hand.
Walk with Moses.
You walk with Moses.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
You walk with Moses. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
While I'm home.
Yeah. Jesus journey.
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus to walk with me.
Say, walk with me, Lord. How y'all doing?
Walk with me. Walk with me.
Lord. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
I'm on my city
Yeah, Lord.
I want Jesus
I want Jesus
to walk with me.
to walk with
Go ahead,
me. Walk with David, a little shepherd boy.
That's a good that one.
Yeah, you made him a great king. I know David shouted for joy. He walked with David, and he's a little shepherd boy. You made him a great king, and David shouted for joy.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. So walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. You gotta walk with me, Lord.
Yeah! That was rocking great, brother.
Oh, yeah.